Manila, Philippines. Early morning. The hum of patrol vessel engines cuts through the salty air off the coast of Palawan. On board, sailors from the Philippine Coast Guard and Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources chart a new course, one that pushes the boundaries of their nation's resolve. They are not just on a routine mission. They are redrawing the lines of maritime enforcement in one of the most contested waterways on the planet. This isn't a drill. It's a deliberate, calculated expansion of the Philippines patrol zone, extending its presence into areas previously dominated by China's maritime militia. The directive, announced by National Security Advisor Eduardo No, was unambiguous. Philippine vessels would now operate on a rotational basis in waters far beyond their traditional limits, challenging Beijing's 9-line with every nautical mile. The announcement sent ripples across the region, a clear signal that Manila was shifting from a defensive posture to one of proactive sovereignty. This is the story of how a Southeast Asian nation, armed with international law and a renewed sense of purpose, decided to stop reacting and start acting, fundamentally altering the strategic calculus of the West Philippine Sea. To understand the gravity of this move, we must look back. For years, the narrative in the West Philippine Sea was one of Chinese aggression and Philippine restraint. The 2016 Permanent Court of Arbitration ruling, which invalidated China's sweeping claims, was a legal victory for Manila. But on the water, it was a different story. Chinese Coast Guard ships, backed by a vast fleet of maritime militia vessels, enforced their own rules, harassing Filipino fishermen, blockading reefs, and slowly normalizing their presence inside the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. Incidents at Ayungin Shoal, where Chinese ships used water cannons against Philippine resupply missions, became a grim, recurring headline. The Philippines, under previous administrations, pursued a path of diplomacy and quiet protest, hoping to de-escalate tensions and maintain economic ties with its powerful neighbor. This strategy, however, was perceived by many as acquiescence. Filipino fishermen lost access to their ancestral fishing grounds, and the nation's maritime resources were exploited with impunity. The feeling on the ground and on the waves was one of frustration. A landmark legal victory felt hollow when the reality was a daily struggle against a superior force. The strategic environment was locked in a cycle of Chinese assertiveness and Philippine reaction. But something has changed. Under the current administration, Manila's approach has hardened, moving from diplomatic notes to direct, on-the-water countermoves. This policy shift is not happening in a vacuum. It's underpinned by a revitalized alliance with the United States through the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA. This agreement has granted American forces rotational access to key military bases across the Philippines, several of which are strategically positioned facing the West Philippine Sea. Joint patrols with the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard have become more frequent, providing a security umbrella and invaluable training for Filipino crews. Furthermore, the Philippines has been on a diplomatic offensive, strengthening security ties with other regional powers like Japan, Australia, and even Canada, which recently finalized a visiting forces agreement. This web of alliances creates a network of support, transforming Manila's unilateral actions into a multilateral stand for a rules-based order. The strategy is clear: internationalize the conflict by involving a coalition of like-minded nations. The Philippines raises the political cost for any act of Chinese aggression. Every patrol is no longer just a Philippine vessel asserting its rights. It's a symbol of a broader international consensus. This new, expanded patrol zone is the tactical heart of this strategy. It's a move straight out of the Gray Zone Operations playbook, a domain China has long dominated. Gray Zone tactics are actions that fall below the threshold of armed conflict, but are intended to achieve strategic goals. China used its maritime militia to seize territory without firing a shot. Now, the Philippines is responding in kind, using its own white-hulled Coast Guard and fisheries vessels to establish a persistent, sovereign presence. By deploying BFA ships, Manila also frames its actions as civilian-led law enforcement protecting food security and marine resources, not military provocation. This is a subtle but brilliant piece of strategic communication. It forces China into a dilemma. If Beijing uses its gray-hulled Navy warships against white-hulled Philippine civilian vessels, it risks being cast as the unambiguous military aggressor. If it uses its own Coast Guard, it finds itself in a direct standoff with its Filipino counterparts, who are now operating with greater confidence and often with international partners nearby. This forces China to react, reversing the dynamic that has defined the dispute for over a decade. Intelligence sources suggest that the increased Philippine presence has already disrupted the operational patterns of China's maritime militia, forcing them to consolidate and expend more resources to maintain their own patrols. What does this mean for the future of the West Philippine Sea? The calm waters are deceptive. The risk of miscalculation is higher than ever. A collision, an aggressive maneuver, or a simple misunderstanding could quickly escalate. Both sides are testing each other's red lines in real time. For the Filipino crews on the front lines, every day is a tightrope walk between asserting sovereignty and avoiding open conflict. They are the tip of the spear in a high-stakes geopolitical contest. Armed with courage, international law, and the knowledge that the world is watching. This expansion of patrols is more than a naval maneuver. It is a declaration of national identity. It is Manila's answer to years of intimidation. It is a bet that a coalition of nations bound by a shared belief in a free and open Indo-Pacific can successfully push back against a superpower's expansionist ambitions. The outcome is far from certain, and the path ahead is fraught with danger. But for the first time in a long time, the Philippines is not just defending its waters, it is defining them. Because in the contest for the West Philippine Sea, presence is possessioning, persistence is power,